So we watch a ton of baseball, and in baseball, when an umpire misses a strike call, they'll give him a strike later. This feels like the NFL saying, "Hey, Josh Allen probably should have won an MVP a couple of years ago. Lamar's already
Mm.
got his 2 MVPs. Let's give our other superstar quarterback an MVP." Because Lamar just, I keep telling people, Lamar just had the best quarterback season we've ever seen in our lives. The best. Why? I cannot believe they gave it to
Statistically
Josh
wise,
Allen.
probably. What's going on, guys? This is the Play-by-Play podcast. I'm here with Cody, and I'm here with Brian and myself, Andrew. Today we're going to get into the Super Bowl. We're going to get into some of the little trade talk with Cooper Kupp and Myles Garrett. And then as for the making of this video right now, we currently have the awards going on, so we'll be announcing those as we go. We have a couple of them in right now. A little bit of MLB, hasn't gone too much, but a little bit here and there, and then maybe a little bit of NBA with the crazy deadline we're getting right now, and some NHL.
Let's get into it.
Super Bowl preview. I mean, let's go plain and simple. Who do you guys got and why? Cody, we can start with you.
So we've talked about all year. Who do you got? Who do you want to take? Don't bet
Yeah.
against the Chiefs. And I talked about it last week. I'm a fan of history. I'm taking the Chiefs. I want to see that three-peat. Now, I know it's going to kill our producer, Josh. I know he's an Eagles fan. But I want to see history. I want to see that three-peat. And I also don't want to see another Eagles Super Bowl as a Cowboys fan. So I've got the Chiefs. I know
Later
I got the number
activities.
one and number two defenses. I'm expecting kind of like a 24-21 lowest scoring final. That's my opinion. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see how these defenses hold up. They are the top two defenses, but they also are going up against amazing offenses. The Chiefs have Mahomes, and you can kind of stop there. And the Eagles have weapons beyond weapons. You stack the box. Okay, we're going to throw it to Devontae and AJ. You guard Devontae and AJ. Saquon's going to rip off a 50-yarder on you. So I'm excited. Me wanting history, I'm rooting for the Chiefs here.
Okay. Brian, what do you got? What do you got to say?
I mean, I'm just going to piggyback off that. The Chiefs are. It's funny. I thought I saw a stat today that the Chiefs, in all of their 3 Super Bowls that they've won so far, Patrick Mahomes has been down by at least 10 or 2 possessions in each of those games at some point in the game. So it's going to be really interesting to even see. And one of those Super Bowls was Jalen Hurts and the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how this all goes. Maybe even if Saquon rips off a few long runs and gets them up, it's not anything the Chiefs aren't used to. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, in a big game like this, it's almost, you would assume, a lock that someone like Travis Kelce is going to have a big game. It's going to be really interesting how the Eagles deal with red zone threats like Kelce and Hopkins. I don't think we've seen a whole lot from Hopkins except for when it was third down in red zone, but that's the 2 most important parts. I think that Spagnuolo will probably make Jalen Hurts win the game. That's just kind of how it is. It seemed like he almost did that, a few years ago, and Jalen Hurts threw for over 300 yards. But I could see a whole lot of run blitzes, linebackers coming out, filling in the gaps. Oh no, filling in the gaps and trying to stop Saquon at all times, and really forcing Jalen Hurts to throw the ball.
Yeah, no, totally. I think the scary thing about this Super Bowl is it's kind of crazy that we arguably have the 2 best defenses from each side. The Chiefs probably had the best defense in the AFC all year, and the Eagles have probably had the best defense in the NFC all year. So when people say defense wins you championships, that's going to kind of come down to whichever one can play better. I don't think we're going to see too many turnovers in this one. I think the teams have been pretty good about taking care of the ball all weekend or all season. And but yeah, I don't know. I think for me, I'm leaning toward the Eagles in this one. I just think that when you do need a big play, who are you going to turn to? I just see the Eagles having more options to do so rather than Mahomes. I think it's really just been moments for him, really, rather than the course of, oh, Mahomes has looked good for 6, 7, 8 games in a row. But it's those little moments of like the Texans touchdown when he kind of fell and then kind of next thing you know, he made that throw and you're like, That's the Mahomes we know.
Yeah.
But I think, you see those special moments where, to start the Rams game, Jalen Hurts, rips off a 48-yard run, touchdown, boom.
Mhm.
And like we've kind of said, that's going to be the weakest part of their offense is the quarterback. Um, and he's played well against the Chiefs before in the past. So I think for me, I just kind of look and I kind of like what I see from the Eagles going into this game. So I'm taking
And
them.
I understand why people would take the Eagles, and like you nailed it, it's the weapons. You said the Jalen Hurts 48-yard touchdown against the Commanders. Saquon first touch he has rips a 70-yard touchdown. So it's
Hmm.
their offense is just so explosive, and that's why I completely understand why. Like I feel like Eagles should be favored almost in this game. I know Chiefs are favored by like 1 or 2 points.
Yeah,
It feels
history.
like the Eagles should be favored. It feels like they should.
I think that I don't know. The Chiefs are definitely favored because they're the Chiefs. That's pretty much
Mhm.
Yeah.
how it is, and they have Patrick Mahomes. I don't honestly. Obviously, I picked the Chiefs, but this could go either way. I mean, it is the Super Bowl for a reason. But I don't honestly at this point. I don't know. I mean, I have a few prop bets that I like, but I wouldn't bet the spread. I wouldn't bet anything on this game because I feel like if the Eagles were to win, the Eagles would have to almost win by double digits. And I think their offense is completely capable of doing so.
Yeah.
But you know, I think Jalen. I'm not part of the whole Jalen Hurts hate club. I actually really like Jalen Hurts. I think he's a good quarterback, and he adds
Hmm.
another dimension to that offense with the fact that Saquon feeds off the fact that on these RPOs or these options, the linebackers have to respect the fact that Jalen Hurts can pull the ball and run, and probably
Hmm.
outrun them if he were to get into the secondary. So it's kind of a toss up. I think that it's obviously with how good these two teams are, it's going to come down to the coaching. And although I do think Nick Sirianni is a good coach, I think just the all around core coaching that the Chiefs have with Reed, Spagnuolo, and their defensive coordinator, I forgot his name, but he's also a certain Hall of Famer too. And there's something to be said with the fact that Spagnuolo has, I believe, only once in his entire career allowed a 100-yard rusher in the playoffs. So you would argue that they'd need 100 plus from Saquon, who he's been supplying that every single week, and they probably need in the Super Bowl against the defensive coordinator that was allowed maybe one in his entire career. That's not a recipe for success.
Now, that being said, you talked about prop bets. I still like a certain Saquon prop bet for rush yards, not his total rush yards, but his longest rush yard. Thought I'd just throw that out there because his line is around normally like 23, 24. I know we've kind of mentioned beforehand building a parlay, but Brian talked about prop bets. I love explosive offense. That offensive line is the greatest in the season so far. They're going to get that explosive play from Saquon. Now, can they slow him down overall? I don't know. I think they have to feed Saquon early in the game. I think that first half, you got to see what can you get from him.
Hmm.
That way, you don't have to rely on Jalen Hurts because you're right. The Chiefs, that's the game plan. Don't let
Yeah.
Saquon beat you. That's your spoiler alert, offensive player of the year, Saquon Barkley, right? So you have to find some way to slow him down. But if you're the Eagles, we need him to eat so we can run those play actions. So Jalen Hurts can run those option plays. So I think first half we're going to see a heavy dose of handing the ball off, see what you can do. So maybe some other, I don't know, Gainwell or something gets in there too to give him some breaks. But I think they have to hammer the run early. That way, if
Little
things get
shifty.
dicey in the second half, yeah, if things get dicey in the second half and you need to rely on Jalen Hurts, you can. You can rely on him to run those play actions, but run those read options because now you've been so built up on Saquon. Hey, we can fake something outside.
All right, so real quick, just before that, I did have a question for you. Um,
Mhm.
you said that they have to move the ball early. So
Yeah,
let's say in a
run
hypothetical
the ball early
situation,
specifically.
yeah, run the ball. My bad.
Yeah.
In a hypothetical situation, let's say the Eagles start with the ball
Mhm.
Hmm.
and Saquon gets stuffed, and the Eagles have to punt. They end up punting. Maybe it's a 6 play drive. Maybe it's a 3-and-out. I don't know. But let's just say
On the first
the
drive.
run isn't working. Yeah, the Chiefs come down and score 7-0. Let's say the Eagles still try to move the ball on the ground, which they should,
Mhm.
and it doesn't amount to points again. And the Chiefs come down, and I'm not even going to give the Chiefs another touchdown. I'll just say they put up more points, they score a field goal, and now you have a 10-0 game, probably going into the end of the first. Could
Yeah.
you see the Eagles maybe panicking and moving away, or do you think their coaching has enough experience to be like, no, this is how we've gotten here? Because we've seen teams in the past. I mean, look at the Ravens last year,
Hmm.
where they ran the ball all year, and then in the championship games, they didn't run the ball at all. So it's going to be really. I'm just curious to get you guys' take on what you think would happen if the Eagles running doesn't get off to a hot start.
Yeah, well, obviously we're not going to know what their game script is. I'm just saying as like I think they should run, and I think as the Eagles, you're okay with running again. Hi, Brian. You're okay with running again because you
Sorry.
know your defense is so good. You're going to trust the defense. Hey, we're going to feed them the ball. It doesn't work this time. Hopefully our defense holds them to a punt too, or hopefully we hold them to just a field goal. Right? You're relying on your best players, and if things don't go well to start, you're relying on your best defense. So I think they do stick with it. Now you go down 14, yeah, you might try to rush the ball or get the ball downfield a little bit quicker. But in the first half, they know they're explosive. They know their defense is good. They're probably not going to expect to go down 3 scores in the first half. I could see them not panicking right away. Right,
Yeah.
stick to the game plan. Stick to what's best. Now they might take an extra shot deep. You do have unbelievable talent with AJ Brown. You do have good short field threats in Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, but you got to stick to what's best. You got to stick to what's gotten you here. That's the guy with 2,300 all-purpose yards. That's the guy with almost all your half your touchdowns because Jalen Hurts sneaks it a lot. Right? You got to stick with your guns. Especially, it's the biggest game. And Nick Sirianni doesn't stick with. If Nick Sirianni goes away from Saquon Barkley in the Super Bowl, oh my gosh, we know how Eagles fans are. I
Yeah,
think they'd
fire him.
be I think they'd be
Fire him.
pissed. I think they'd be so pissed. Right. So I think at least for the first half, you're planning on your defense being able to slow the Chiefs down to let you build on that game plan, continue it.
100%.
Yeah.
Because I think the only explosive player we've seen from the Chiefs side right now is really only Xavier Worthy. Kareem Hunt's
Yeah.
not really explosive.
It's
He's been
Xavier
consistent.
Worthy.
He's been solid, but I wouldn't say he's
Yeah.
explosive.
And the Xavier Worthy
Pacheco,
big plays have all come from
no.
short plays. They're not throwing it deep to Xavier Worthy because he's
Yeah.
dropping them. Yeah.
So definitely, I think it's something where the Eagles defense, they haven't really given up big plays, and I don't see it changing anytime soon, especially with the Chiefs offense, how it's looked the entire season. Those aren't really things they're going to go for, I think.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I definitely do think if they are getting beat or something like that, it'll just be long drives, which gives the offense time to, kind of figure things out. But they still got a great defense, so I don't see them being on the field that often anyway.
I know we wanted to talk about who we think are going to score touchdowns. So, AJ, do you have anybody that you want to say is going to score a touchdown this weekend?
Um, man, I'm kind of torn in between Kareem Hunt and Xavier Worthy, but if anything's shown me, I think he's looked the best in the offense, definitely in the last few weeks. I think even the last 2 months, I think he had like 6 or 7 catches like every game. Give me Xavier Worthy for me.
Xavier really was going to be my pick. I could see it now. I could see them inside the
Yeah.
five, a like fake reverse, turn back around and dump it
Hmm.
right off to him. He walks in. I think they did that with like Kadarius Toney a couple years ago, or last year, 2 years ago. I don't know. Whenever
You know
Kadarius
what
Toney was
then?
on the team for a few
Give me
months.
Kareem Hunt then. If you're taking Worthy, I'm
Perfect.
taking Hunt. Because,
Love
they
it.
love to run the ball when it comes to when they get down there. I think, why not? Obviously
Yeah.
Kelsey he's been kind of a shell of his former self all season anyway. Why not pound the ball?
Yeah. And it's just so hard. Kelsey feels like a playoff lock, but he wasn't there last week or 2 weeks ago. So I do like Worthy. I do
Yeah.
like Hunt. Should we pop up? Do we think Saquon scoring? He's like a minus 270 to score.
Oh
Owen feels
man.
he's been scoring every single game. Like
I think he
we none of
has
us
to.
picked the most
He
obvious,
has
right?
to.
Both of us shied away from the most obvious pick. So last Eagles Chiefs game, Jalen Hurts
Yeah.
rushing touchdown was my lock. I was like, that is a guarantee to happen.
Okay.
And I think he had like
Uh-huh.
two or something like that. So I
Yeah.
do like Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown too. I'd say for sure, let's stick with Hunt and Worthy.
Yeah. Those are my guys. Because Pacheco just hasn't looked the same since he's kind of gotten back from that injury. He just
Mm-hmm.
he looks like he's running hard, but I feel like he's going nowhere when he's running.
Yeah.
So Hunt, if he's good and healthy, I would say Hunt for sure.
It feels like once they're inside the 20, Pacheco's out, Hunt's back in the game. That's what it feels like the whole
Yeah.
playoffs so far. So,
Hmm.
you want to talk about anything else about the Super Bowl? Should we jump into some
No, I think
awards?
I think we kind of covered it. I think we know what kind of game we're expecting. We're expecting some
Yeah,
defensive heavy game, and whatever team can kind of limit the mistakes, which I feel like is in any game. But obviously, the Super Bowl is going to magnify those mistakes. Um, are definitely going to make the big difference. If Mahomes, who's kind of thrown picks all year, I think he's been pretty good with it in the playoffs. I think he's only thrown one in the playoffs, right?
very usual playoff Mahomes. Yeah,
So,
doesn't really do anything.
I don't see that changing anytime soon. And then, game plan, if it works well, because I don't even think, have the Chiefs been getting a lot of turnovers themselves? I,
I don't think
I don't
so. It
think they've
doesn't
been
feel like. I
forcing
think
them
they
like that
picked off.
either.
I don't think they did. I
I
think
think
they
they picked off Stroud.
picked off Stroud. They might have picked off Allen early in the game, maybe. Or maybe Allen should have thrown like 3 picks in that first drive or something like that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I don't think they're getting a lot of turnovers. They're just,
Yeah.
forcing punts. So
They've just been solid. So, I mean, which, like I've told you, I'd rather my defense look like that than rely on turnovers.
yeah,
So
yeah,
because those will happen. Guys run into one, good coverage, boom. Next thing you know, it's a
yeah.
pick. So I think it's definitely easier to rely on a good, solid defense rather than a team that just makes turnovers. Because if you live and die by those, that's a dicey game.
You're still giving up explosive plays, and that's.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
excited.
When you
I want
go,
to see some big plays. I want to see something big.
I just for one team that hasn't had it all year, it's gonna be
Yeah,
hard to see it.
I know.
Um, but I mean, I definitely I could see definitely. You didn't say what was Saquon's his line was. You said it's normally in the 23 range, but you didn't say what
It's
the
like
line was. I
minus
was curious.
here. I think you can still hear me. I don't think you can see me right now. I'll tell you what it is.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out because if it's like in the 16 range, I'm liking that.
For his
Oh,
touchdown?
no way! I
What's
don't know
going
if you
on?
just saw that, Cody, that update.
No, I did not get it. What happened?
Oh my God.
Just tell me what happened. We'll jump right to it.
Okay, I want to see your reaction on screen though, so that's why I'll say
Okay,
it.
let me come back. Look, hold on. Am I good?
Wow, you're
All right,
good.
tell me.
Josh Allen is your 2024/25 MVP.
No way.
Just announced. I mean, that's a good segue into what we
Yeah,
were
let's
gonna
go
jump
straight to the
into anyway with the
awards.
awards.
Let's go straight
But
to
what
the
do you
awards.
think?
And let's talk about
What do you?
MVP. So we watch a ton of baseball, and in baseball, when an umpire misses a strike call, they'll give him a strike later. This feels like the NFL saying, "Hey, Josh Allen probably should have won an MVP a couple of years ago. Lamar's already
Mhm.
got his 2 MVPs. Let's give our other superstar quarterback an MVP." Because Lamar just, I keep telling people, Lamar just had the best quarterback season we've ever seen in our lives. The best. Why? I cannot believe they gave it to
Statistically
Josh
wise,
Allen.
probably, or it's up there.
Statistically wise, the best. He's throwing for over 4,000 yards. He has a better touchdown to interception ratio than Aaron Rodgers ever had. And he rushed for 900 yards at the same time. And we gave it to Josh. I love Josh Allen. But there was a different year where Josh Allen should have won MVP. It was not this year.
I agree. Yeah, so I mean, I think that was what
Saquon
we
was
kind of
second voted.
expected. No, no, no. Lamar
Lamar
was.
was second. Okay, Lamar was second. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I mean, I called it though, I think when you looked at the roster that the Bills had, you take Josh Allen off that roster,
Yeah.
it's like a five win, 6-win
Oh,
team maybe,
100%. I
you know?
I could
And
see that. Yeah.
and then you kind of replace Lamar, obviously unreplaceable, given the
Yeah.
talent that he has and the season that he had, no question. But I definitely think when you have guys like Roquan Smith, Zay Flowers, who had 1,000 yards, Derrick Henry, who freaking, what did he end up with? Like 1,900 yards on the
Let's see,
ground,
1900, something like that. Yeah.
dude. I mean, we saw what he did with no quarterback in Tennessee. No quarterback in
Yeah.
Tennessee. Um, and it's an okay defense.
Uh,
Um, Look at that. They were going to the playoffs with just him. Because I'm
yeah.
not going to give any quarterback that they had any credit in the last
Yeah.
10 years at Tennessee.
Not a Ryan
Um,
Tannehill fan? Taking to the AFC
get out of
Championship?
No, sir.
Hey,
No, sir. How he was getting 55 million a year
man, he helped me win
once
a
upon a time.
some fantasy games when I drafted Andrew Luck. Came up clutch for me one year.
Hey, and think of the name you just said, Andrew Luck. I can't remember the last time Andrew Luck took a snap in the NFL. But I think, when you look at it like that, Derrick Henry was able to go to the playoffs without a quarterback. Granted, it was in the South, where obviously
A
not
little
as
bit
good of a
easier.
division as the AFC
Hmm.
North. But, when he's carrying a team like that, the Titans to the playoffs,
Yeah,
I think he certainly could have done it with the Baltimore Ravens. So,
yeah. It
I
just
think
sounds
that those,
crazy.
I mean, you look at stats and they're not going to make sense. You can't
I
look at it
know.
like
I
that.
guess.
You have to take the award for what the meaning has kind of lost over the years, which is the most valuable player.
Hmm.
That is the guy that is most valuable to their team. You take Josh Allen off the Bills, they aren't sniffing the playoffs, in my opinion.
That team is a lot worse. He's throwing to him, Khalil Shakir, a top receiver. You
Yeah,
expected like Dalton Kincaid to show up, and he still feels like second fiddle to Dawson Knox. James Cook, who's supposed to be undersized, not good running back, has a great year. So, and that probably all
yeah.
gets attributed to we have to stop Josh Allen. So I think you're right. It is boosting everybody up, but holy, I can believe it. I hate awards sometimes,
It,
especially NFL
you're
MVP
never gonna
awards.
make everyone happy, though. You're really not.
Never, never.
But I think, you take the award for what it should be and not obviously what it has been, but for what it
Yeah,
should be. And I think we can name 15 other wide receiver cores that are better than what the Bills had,
yeah.
going into the season and what they even ended up with, even with Cooper, because
Cooper was playing hurt,
unfortunately,
so even when he got there, yeah,
yeah,
he was doing nothing.
unfortunately, he was kind of a shell of himself over the last couple weeks or couple months that he had with the team. And I felt like we normally say that about the Ravens, but then Zay goes for 1,000. Mark Andrews
Yeah,
leads the league in tight end touchdowns. So it's like, did he really not have much? Likely who looked great
yeah.
most of the season when he was getting opportunities. I know your guy, Rashad Bateman. He was looking
Oh
good
my
the last
God.
couple months.
Yeah, he was catching
So it's
touchdowns
like
every week.
we're naming these guys, and we got Josh Allen who's relying on Mac Hollins to make big plays. I think it speaks volumes to kind of to kind of what
Yeah.
the situations were. So
I hear the ghost of Brian. Is Brian back
I do
audio
too.
wise? Maybe he'll be able to talk about some other awards. So I think we heard of who was third in the MVP voting. That is our Offensive Player of the Year, Saquon.
Yeah.
Now, to me, this feels like a slam dunk. The only other person you could have argued is Jamar Chase, who won the wide receiver triple crown. Um,
Yep.
I think Saquon had like a top five season all time in terms of all purpose yards, so that it just felt like a slam dunk. Yeah, and he didn't
Yeah.
even play the last week of the season, so he could have broke the records. He could have broke records.
And I
So
feel like that kind of could take away the conversation of like, oh, well, these guys get to play an extra game. Well, Saquon didn't.
yeah,
Those stats that you see, those are regular.
those are
That's regular
16
for what
games.
the old, the old way it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think that. I mean, the only shock really I think here is that Allen took it over Lamar, which
Yeah,
what Lamar had won an award that what like 9 times out of 10, if a guy won that award, he won the MVP. What was it? The
I think he's is he the
or
first team
All
All
Pro?
Pro?
Was it the All Pro?
He's first
Yeah,
team
there
All
we
Pro.
go.
I think I could be wrong. I think he's the first team All Pro to lose MVP to the second team All. So I think Josh Allen ended up second team. Could be
Yeah,
wrong.
first time ever.
Hopefully, I think.
I mean, I had
Listen,
heard that it was
if I'm
like,
wrong, somebody correct me. But it is something like that. It's like it never happens, right?
yeah, but I mean,
So
that's I remember seeing that stat, and I like maybe my numbers were off too, but I had known that the margins for if you're All Pro or if you're the first team All Pro,
first team All Pro.
you were at least you weren't losing to the other quarterback. I would say.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we can
there
confidently
was
say
a
that.
there was a year where a kicker won an MVP. So maybe that was the year that threw everything off. But
Yeah, see, but I
yeah,
mean, um, but yeah, no, just crazy because that for me is really the only surprise. I think obviously there are one and twos were kind of whichever you preferred, and three I think was always going to be Saquon. Just for what he did for the Eagles, it's crazy to say that he transcended that offense, which we already thought was a great offense, and
he
he took it
did.
to
I mean,
heights that we didn't even know that they were there.
second half of the season, Jalen Hurts isn't himself. He's hurting. They're beefing with
Yeah.
OJ Brown. Jalen Hurts has to sit a couple games, and Saquon 200 yards, 150 yards, 200 yards. It just
Yeah.
doesn't matter, guys. I got this. Give me the ball. Doesn't matter. I got this.
Yeah.
Give me the ball. So that was an obvious offensive player of the year. See if Brian comes back. Drum roll, please.
It sucks you guys
Brian's going
couldn't
to
hear
give
my
us
reaction.
Brian's going to give us a reenactment of how he reacted. I need a full reenactment. I need everything.
So here, if you want the full reenactment,
Yeah,
because I was
let me see
deleting
it.
stuff off of my phone. Okay, so full reenactment was this.
Right angle.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. And then I joined again to try and talk to you guys, and I went like this, and I went, and then I did a victory lap around because I like Josh Allen.
So what are your thoughts? Me and Cody kind of
Yeah, what do you
discussed
think
it
about
already, but what do you think?
So legitimately, I did catch a little bit of what you guys said, and I agree. Where it does seem like this is definitely the first year where Josh Allen didn't have an out and out superstar with him. He had Stephon Diggs, when he really started to become that top tier quarterback. He got Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
And this year, I mean, you'd argue that would Khalil Shakir be the receiver he is if he didn't have Josh Allen? I don't know. Same with Keon Coleman and same with Collins. You don't know, and I guess we'll never find out unless they go to different teams. But there is only one other person I'd say is probably a guaranteed stud no matter where he goes, and that's Cook. I think Cook is an unbelievable running back, but that's also because Josh Allen's ability to run as well. You have to respect Josh Allen. We were just talking about it with Hurts, how it benefits Saquon Barkley that Jalen Hurts can run. And I think that that is kind of the same thing with Cook, even though I think Cook would be able to do it anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think you could honestly make the same argument for Lamar, although he does have Zay Flowers. I mean, he does make other receivers like Rashad Bateman look really good. Although he does have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, who people are starting to believe is better than Mark Andrews anyways.
You'd be those people.
But it is. Huh?
He said you'd be those people. I'm still pro Mark Andrews, but
I just think it's two different type of things. Oddly enough,
Yeah.
I know that they lost their game because Mark Andrews dropped the ball, but I think that Mark Andrews is probably a little bit better of a third down and red zone threat than Isaiah Likely is. If Isaiah Likely could learn how to keep his pinky toe in, he'd probably be the better red zone threat. But no. But in all seriousness, I mean, I like Josh Allen. I think they only gave it to Josh Allen because they didn't want a 3-time MVP in Lamar Jackson, and this wouldn't be 3 in a row, correct? This would be he won one and then didn't. It'd just be back to back, right? So, I mean, if you're looking at it just purely on paper, and I'd argue and say that when you really look back at the entire season, does Josh Allen deserve it? Yes, he does, 100%. You can't argue the fact that Josh Allen doesn't deserve the MVP, but would you also make the argument that Lamar Jackson deserves it more? Yes, I would say that yes, Lamar Jackson did deserve this MVP more. It is going to be interesting though. I wonder, it will be obviously it's not fun for Lamar Jackson to not have a third MVP, but it would be interesting to see what people talked about if Lamar Jackson won this MVP and then had another really good season next year, but didn't win the MVP. But then 2-3 years down the line, we're talking about a 3-time, 4-time MVP person that hasn't even been to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that tag of being the guy that's really good in the regular season but not getting to the Super Bowl, this might be a little bit of weight off his chest, because the weight for him and Allen now is just, can they win the big game? Everybody knows they're superstars. Yeah. Everybody knows they're superstars. Yeah, it's the same thing with Joe Burrow. It's just the unfortunate thing that you're playing in the same conference with Patrick Mahomes. It's just kind of how it is. I mean, that tag was with Peyton Manning for a long time. That's awesome. He's a multi-MVP winner. The Colts are unbelievable, but he can't get into the dance. And then they finally did, and they won. So I think this is just a legacy builder. Obviously, it's going to look really good when they're both inducted into the Hall of Fame, because they both will be. As long as they continue on this path, they'll be easily in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. But so it's nice for Josh Allen to get his first. But I do feel a little bit bad that Lamar can't add to his trophy cabinet this year.
All right, so I think we should move on to the, I guess not the least important. I mean, some of these are really cool to look at, but the ones that maybe people don't care as much about. We have
Oh,
offensive rookie
Cody,
of the year. Yeah.
real quick, sorry. The only other thing I wanted to do, because I know you guys did it, was the person that I would think would score a touchdown. Just quick, the
Oh
two people I
yes.
think would score
Okay.
a touchdown.
Yeah.
Because I heard you guys do it. I'm actually
Yeah.
going both tight ends for this. I know I heard you say that Travis Kelce hasn't really been a threat. I think this is the biggest game of the season. This is the obviously Travis Kelce is gonna find the paint. I think that's just kind of how it's gonna be. And then I could honestly see maybe on the 15-yard line, the Chiefs bring some sort of pressure with a linebacker or something. Dallas Goedert's open in the middle of the field, hits
Freeze
him.
them up.
Dallas Goedert can run well with the ball. We've seen him run well with the ball in both playoff games. So I could
I'm
see
gonna
him
lock it
finding the
in.
paint too.
I'm gonna put $5 on this. We got Worthy, Hunt, Kelsey, Goddard, and our
Didn't
producer
you
Josh
say?
is telling us Jalen Hurts.
Didn't you
That's
say
our
that
five.
there was only going to be like 20 points scored per team? I don't know where the hell all
Hey,
this
that's
is going
three
to come
Well,
from.
touchdowns
there's
right there. That's
three
20.
touchdowns.
That's
We're
21.
saying those are the three guys
Hey,
scoring,
and
and
listen,
no one
while we're at
else.
it,
There's 21.
Patrick Holmes ran in two in the conference final.
Not putting any Patrick Mahomes rushing touchdowns on my slip. I won't even. They
No,
won't even
sir.
sniff it. They won't even sniff it. I'll
Nope.
put $5 on it. Let's see if play by play makes me rich this weekend.
I,
Let's
I,
see.
I'd actually probably bet Goddard over Kelsey though, in my
Doing them
opinion.
both.
But
Doing them both.
well, can't go wrong
Taylor
with
Swift
both.
is there. If I find out Swift is there, I might do 2 Kelsey TDs.
Oh, two.
I won't do 2 Kelsey TDs,
I was
but
about to say.
if she's there, the odds are good enough.
I mean,
All
she's
right, so
definitely there. There's no way.
let's jump back into the awards. We got Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jayden Daniels. There was like a 2-week period where everybody's like, it could be Bo Nix, and then Jayden Daniels just went and became 2023 Lamar Jackson. So unbelievable season. Took the Commanders all the way to the championship game. Looks like he's going to be a dominant force. Didn't get hurt like RG3 did, so he's looks like he should last, right? Do you guys have anything to say about Jayden Daniels in this rookie season?
Listen, I took a lot of heat for this when we were first starting out, honestly. And I said that CJ Stroud had in my opinion, the best rookie year of all time in the NFL. Just because of the bounce back that they had. They were a horrible for poverty franchise until CJ Stroud and D'Amico Ryans came in.
Harsh,
You could
but
argue
okay.
that they were. Um, but they were. You could argue that the Washington Commanders, I mean, you could date this. You could date this. You know what I'm saying? You could say the Washington Commanders / the Washington football team / sorry for this, but that's what they were called, the Washington Redskins. You could argue that they haven't been exactly a premium franchise for quite some time. And for a rookie and a new head coach, I know it's not his first gig, but it's certainly obviously his first year back. To be able to do what they did is unbelievable. I don't think there was any doubt that he was the offensive player of the year. Bo Nix also, I feel a little bit for Bo Nix because he had an unbelievable rookie year as well. But nobody's going to remember it because now you take your team to the conference final or to the conference championship. You could definitely make the argument that I know a lot of people have had good rookie years, but you could definitely Jayden Daniels has crept himself in that argument of having the best rookie year of all time.
Certainly.
And it would have been a no doubt if they beat the Eagles. But
You can,
listen. Everybody talks about how good the Eagles were. Jayden Daniels had the answer to that Eagles defense because I think he put up 20. I think he put up 30 on them both times they played in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm on your side. I'm sorry to cut it. I know AJ was going to go next, but I said it. I think he had the best rookie season I've seen. It was like CJ Stroud type passing from last year, but with also 700, 800 rush yards. Like unbelievable stuff. What would you like to add to it, AJ?
I was gonna say just to piggyback off of that. Obviously the passing, CJ threw for 4K yards. I don't know. Did Jaden get there quite? Did
I
he get
don't
quite to
know.
4?
I'm
It
not
was
100% sure.
close. I'm
If
not
not, I'm
sure.
sure he was in the ballpark, right?
Yeah.
But then to say that it was the best rookie season ever, I don't think it goes without being said that with the playoff success, you can
Yes.
be great in the regular season,
Yes.
hats off to you, great job. But to go and win 2 playoff games against one who was probably the favorite in the
Yep.
NFC in the Lions, and not just to beat them, but to curb stomp them basically. To
Yeah.
be frank, And I think with the mixture of that, with the stats, and even just the culture that he's kind of creating there now, for me, I think it's the best rookie season for sure. Um, and obviously, we hope that it continues. And just what a season by Jaden Daniels.
You know what impresses me the most about Jane Daniels is I was watching the Pat McAfee show today, and he was on there, and he was talking to everybody about how he, as a rookie, would go into Cliff Kingsbury's office and be like, "Hey, listen, these plays that we did today, they're not for me. They ain't gonna work." And you see veterans do that. Obviously Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, all the greats always went into their coordinator or head. Patrick Mahomes would do it with Andy Reid, but you're talking about a guy first year that had the, I guess, quote unquote, the nerve, even though that sounds like a derogatory term, but the confidence, I'll say, to go in there and be like, listen, these aren't going to work. Let's try these, or hey, these are going to work. Let's keep these in. Is insane maturity from a person that you think is probably only going to grow. I don't see any slowing down for him, especially because he's that dual threat, like you said, where he can use his feet. But when he loses, when Father Time catches up with him, it looks like he has the arm talent to be a quarterback until he's in his 40s.
Right, so let's move on to the defensive side. We're going to start off with our defensive player of the year. We got Patrick Surtain, cornerback and for the Denver Broncos. Sorry, it's spaced out there. Patrick Surtain wins defensive player of the year. In a year that kind of felt like a down year, we normally see edge rushers and linebackers win this. Maybe it's just, it wasn't hey, Surtain dominated so much. I know he played really well. Maybe it was nobody else kind of showed up on the defense or stood out to us. AJ, would you like to go first on this one?
I mean, yeah, as a Texans fan, I think it's great for the sport, to seeing that, maybe Derek Stingley can get in this conversation eventually.
Yeah.
I know he's up for an extension this year. Obviously not a free agent, but it's likely that they're going to lock him up this offseason.
You'd hope.
But I think it's cool. I think for sure when we saw TJ Watt get 11 and a half sacks this year, kind of looking at it like, damn, like what's
Yeah.
going on here? I think Myles Garrett, I think he got like 13, 14 sacks too, which we look back at old seasons where guys are getting 17 regularly or 19 on a great season. To be what, 5, 8 or 5 to 6 sacks short of that. I do think it
And
speaks
still
volumes as
being
to
top
how,
five in the NFL too. Like they're still top five
yeah.
in sacks. And yeah, they're only getting 10, 11, 12 this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe the sack numbers were just down, and it was a weird down year for that. But yeah, just what a great, and I think for where the Broncos were to be the leader of a team that could take you to the playoffs. Just what a season by Pat Surtain, who I think we would all agree is probably the best corner in football.
Yeah.
I think he cemented himself as that the best. I mean, with him this year, I mean, it's obviously, I think before we started, you read off, Cody, that he was the first person since Stephon Gilmore, first corner
I
since
think
Stephon Gilmore to
first
win the award.
DB since Gilmore. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So it's
so
been a
you're
while.
right.
It's been
I mean,
a lot of edge rushers.
it has definitely been a lot, and or a while, I should say. And it's really interesting. Obviously, a lot of people said that the Broncos were successful because of their defense. That was, Bo Nix did show up towards the end, and you would expect that from someone that is being coached by Sean Payton. But that defense for the Broncos was what carried them for a long time of the year. Who's the leader of that defense? Patrick Surtain. I think that just kind of shows how amazing he was. And, you said a down year for edge rushers. I think I would agree, because it almost seemed like none of them were in the conversation for defensive player of the year. I'm trying to remember, and I was actually trying to look it up, but unfortunately my iPad is what's holding my phone up. But I was trying to look at it and see who led the NFL in sacks this year. And I was trying to, Trey Hendrickson did. Yeah, it was 17 and a half.
Yeah.
Unbelievable year for Trey Hendrickson. But you'd
he wasn't even talked about.
He wasn't even talked about. And so, I would argue, I mean, you're looking at a list here. I have it pulled up now. You had Hendrickson with 17 and a half, Garrett with 14, Bonito on Denver with 13 and a half, and then Kyle Van Noy and Hunter to round out the top. Stud, still coming back. And Daniil Hunter to round out the list. And that's 17, 14, 13, 12, 12. And so, definitely a low year. I mean, nobody talked about Micah Parsons, and he ended up with 11 and a half, and he missed time.
Wow.
So I think that
dominating. If he did miss time,
this was a year. This was a year that certainly at the beginning of the year you could argue that Hutchinson could have been in the conversation, but then he snapped his leg, and so I think that a lot of these big time names, because although we don't like to admit it, a lot of these awards are also popularity awards. And I think that if any of these guys had a blowout season, I think if Myles Garrett went north of 18 sacks, he probably would have won it. But he didn't. And it's really nice to see someone who is. I think I'm going to go with AJ here and say that he's without a doubt the best corner in the NFL, best DB in the NFL. Just what he brings to the table as a whole, with a leader leading that defense, and just him. I mean, they want to talk about how he doesn't get a whole lot of interceptions and he doesn't get a whole lot of balls thrown to him. Well, his job is to cover the guy. It's a great season, or it's a great game if the guy gets the ball twice, because he's just locked down wherever he is. So that's always the interesting balance with corners. Like, are you going to base it off of turnovers, like picks? Like, is he a good corner because he's getting a lot of picks? Yes. But is he a good corner if his guy never sees the ball? Yes, because the guy's never open for him to be able to
throwing him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what you just Patrick Surtain's the type of guy, and there's a few of them where you can literally just be like, listen, you're guarding their one, follow him, and he's out of the game. That's kind of just how it is. And there's very few of those in the NFL, but he's definitely one of them.
So there's a couple of things I want to add before we move on to the next award. My two favorite things that I love about Patrick Surtain's year. The first thing is, before the season starts, he goes out and he gets his bag. He gets paid, becomes, I believe, the highest paid corner, gets what he deserves, and he rewards his team with Defensive Player of the Year, playoff. Like, that is the best way. Hey, thank you for giving me money. Let me show you it was worth it. And now it's going to open the door. Obviously, we always talk about resetting the market. But Surtain's proving, hey, if you pay me, we can still win. We can do great stuff. So I think that was just perfect. I love that. I love when he gets paid, wins the award. Second favorite thing he did earlier in the year, he posted the white man can't jump with him and Riley Moss. And that is one of my favorite things I've ever seen any NFL player post. I thought that was so funny. I loved it. So they have two great corners now, right? And let's hopefully they can build off it. I mean, they're in probably one of the toughest divisions, but congratulations, Patrick Surtain. So let's move on to our last award. Real quick before we go on.
Can I add on real quick? Yeah. So I looked at it here. Patrick Surtain was 12th in the NFL for interceptions. He had 4. But you are right. I did want to just going to go off on a tangent here real quick. I think that you're going to see, you said they're in a tough division, but I mean, they free up the cap this year from Russell Wilson. They get like $80 million in cap taken off this year, and they were unbelievable last year.
Yeah.
The opportunity, and you're definitely right. It is a tough division. We talked about it last week. How, I mean, you hope the Raiders can improve now with Pete Carroll, but you hope. Certainly, they have the head coach.
Yeah, we hope.
They have the head coach too, and then you have Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, and then the team that's going for a third straight Super Bowl. Yeah, so
All right, so last important award will be the Defensive Rookie of the Year. That goes to Jared Verse from the Los Angeles Rams. Jared Verse. So I'll take the lead on this one for Jared Verse, since you guys went first. Previous two. Jared Verse was somebody who was kind of talked about after draft day. He seemed like an important piece. There was that video of him reconnecting with a college teammate. It seems like the second half, when the Rams started winning, is when Jared Verse took off. He was all of a sudden, every primetime game the Rams were on, Jared Verse was in the backfield. Jared Verse was making plays. And you look back, he's a rookie defensive lineman who gets 70 tackles. And on top of those 70 tackles, he has the 6.5 sacks, I believe. So he puts together a solid year, and he's kind of showing the beginnings of one of those dominant type of players, like a Micah Parsons, who will get you a ton of tackles, but also has the talent to get back there in the backfield and make plays. He just kind of showed off. You saw the playoff game. You saw the Rams' last push. I think those last games really said, hey, this is our best defensive rookie. What he was able to do when the Rams were pushing at the very end, it took him to new heights. And that felt like if you asked me before today who's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, I probably wouldn't even been able to name a second place because it seems like Jared Verse was the only defensive rookie in my opinion. Who wants to go next on this guy?
I can go real quick, but I'll keep it short. I think that he was really important for the Rams. The Rams were looking for that replacement. I understand they played two different positions on the defensive line, but the Rams were looking for a game disruptor like they had with Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
And I think him, Jared Verse, and also his counterpart, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but
Byron Young?
Yeah.
Or Fisk, his college teammate Fisk or Byron Young?
Yeah, college teammate Fisk. Yeah, college teammate Fisk. They both were unbelievable this year, especially down the stretch. And Jared Verse was obviously the better of the two, and he deserves the Rookie of the Year for defensive. And I think you're right. It shows that the fact that when the Rams got healthy with their offensive players and their defense was hit or miss, Jared Verse stepped up and showed that the Rams are a really good organization. They kind of kick the can down the road financially, but they can draft well. And Jared Verse showed that they hit on a draft pick.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm not going to add too much to what you guys have already said. But just obviously we live in LA, and catching the Rams games. I think one thing that I really liked early on, even in when I would say the Rams were playing poorly, is he was always getting into that backfield. So I think the only issue, I think I said this earlier in the previous podcast, but his ability to get into the backfield, that wasn't the issue for him. It was just wrapping up the quarterback, or maybe they were just getting out just a second before. But he was getting there, and I was like, if he can just wrap up and make that final play, he already did the hard part of getting there. He just needed to get to the quarterback and wrap him up and take him down. So this didn't surprise me at all, seeing him take off and seeing the heights that he was taking the Rams to, because I was seeing the little beginnings of it. So I think for me, great get for the Rams. Oh, I was gonna say, I don't know if you guys want to talk about comeback player of the year.
Is that award come out? I didn't write it down.
Yeah, that award came out, and it went
who won
to
comeback?
Joe Burrow.
Oh, I thought it went.
So if you guys have any comments for it, I mean, would love to hear them.
So I did see that they kind of changed the parameters on the way comeback player of the year works. I think it's because a lot of people had a problem with the fact that Joe Flacco won last year. And rightfully so. I mean, a dude came back. I know there are a lot of people out there that don't like the fact that DeMar Hamlin was up there for comeback player of the year last year because he didn't really play all that much last year. But the dude came back from death. And that's the biggest comeback you can have. So they went to a new parameter of people. It doesn't just mean comeback player of the year. It doesn't just mean, hey, I sucked and now I'm good again. So that kind of ruled out Sam Darnold, even though he was the betting favorite. Joe Burrow obviously could have been up for a whole lot of comeback player of the years so far with how many times he's been hurt. It is pretty incredible the injury he's come back from, the wrist injury. It looked like he could barely even hold a football, a few weeks before the season even started, with that ligament damage in his wrist. But, I don't know. There weren't that many, people last year that were unbelievably hurt and then came back and were still a stud or something like that. You could argue that with the fact that we had a few people go down this year. If you're an early betting favorite, I'd bet Hutchinson to win comeback player of the year next year. If those odds are even available. But, I'm happy that they changed the parameters on that. So I'm kind of happy that someone like Joe Burrow won instead of like Sam Darnold.
Do we want to pitch in a little bit about the Cooper Kupp trade or Myles Garrett? I don't know if we wanted to touch on that.
Oh yeah. So just two players. I know we've been talking about. I know we've been talking about football for a while, but these are two really big people. And we could 100% mention these, but these are two things that I feel like the writing was on the wall. First one, yeah. Cooper Kupp is gone from Los Angeles, no longer part of the Rams. I feel like that was kind of, you saw it coming. He was slowly getting phased out of the offense a little bit. They have Puka Nacua coming up. It's almost like they're doing him a favor. Like, hey, we know you're a stud. We know you want to be the guy. We're going to give you the opportunity to be that number one somewhere else. So it it feels like they're trying to do him a favor while maybe saving some money. But that one is pretty interesting. So Brian, what do you think? What do you think about Cooper Kupp?
I think he needs to go to the Colts. I mean,
honestly, that would feel like a good fit too. I feel like that'd be a good fit.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, with the way Cooper Kupp gets open, I can throw him the ball. So it doesn't. But I think that obviously you don't really get a whole lot. I understand he's up there in years, whatever. You don't really get, and this goes the same that for the other person we're talking about. You don't really get like premium wide receivers in free agency a whole lot. Being able to sign a whole lot of guys. They either get franchise tag. We're going to see a few of them with T. Higgins as well coming into this offseason. So it's going to be interesting. I am kind of happy, like you said, with the Rams doing this because I don't think they definitely can't afford Cooper Kupp. We talked about their cap issues, and they're going to have to end up paying Puka Nacua. So I think they realized they could only afford Puka Nacua, and they can't, they're obviously going to go with the younger guy. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I think that Cooper Kupp, what are there, 32 teams in the NFL? I think 31 teams could use Cooper Kupp.
Fair. I think certainly that's pretty much everything you could say. The Rams probably want to free up some cap space. And we did see Cooper Kupp get phased out a little bit toward the end of the year. Obviously, he can still make those plays. I think he looked great against the Eagles. It'll just be interesting to see where he goes. I think for me, the one I'm more intrigued with, which I don't think it comes as just a surprise with us, is the Myles Garrett talk because I think when you ask out, it's not one of those things. Well, hey, we'll see if we can. Like, nah, he seems like the kind of guy that would be like, hey, I'm asking for a trade. Get me out of here.
He actually said
that
on
one,
the Rich
same
Eisen
thing
show
where
today.
I say what happened? Go first.
He actually said on the Rich Eisen. He actually said on the Rich Eisen show today that after talking with the front office, he just does not like the direction that the Browns are going in, and he wants out. I mean, I don't blame him. They don't have a quarterback, and they're paying some guy that's not going to play this next year an insane amount of money. They're not going to have a quarterback. They're not going to have any future. And he said that he's running out of time, and he's right. That's just kind of how it is. And also, come to the Colts.
Colts can't build a super team. But I need to stop working during the day so I can hear some interviews from these players. But
I drive a lot.
It's exactly what I was going to say, though. It's of course Myles Garrett wants to get out of there. The Browns are probably going to be rebuilding for the next 2-3 years. Why would one of the best defensive players of our generation
9, 10, 11 years.
Maybe. Why would one of the best players of our generation rot away? Right? So he's won his awards. He's done his individual accolades. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame. Only thing missing from Myles Garrett is the Super Bowl. And if he stays in the Browns, there's just no shot that happens. And he knows that. And I'm sure the Browns are going to see that. Hey, you've done a lot of great stuff for our team. We're going to respect that. They should. We don't know what they're going to do, but they should. They should respect that and say, yeah, we'll.
It doesn't happen a whole lot.
I know,
it doesn't happen a whole lot in the NFL. But.
So we'll see what happens. But I when it happened, you're like, oh my God, Myles Garrett's going to get traded.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, who could blame him? Exactly what he was saying on the Rich Eisen show. That the direction they're going is not where he wants to be.
Certainly
not at this point in his career, at least.
All right. So we wanted to, I don't know, AJ, if you wanted to touch on this as pretty much only the, I'd say at least on this panel we have right now, the only person that has any interest in the NBA. And it just so happens that you are a Lakers fan. Obviously, I don't know much about basketball, so anybody that's watching that loves basketball, don't crucify me. But a lot of people are calling this trade the fleece of the century. With Luka Doncic going to the Lakers to play with LeBron James and AD going back to the Mavs, team up with Kyrie. I'm interested here real quick. I want to see what you have to say about, try and put your fandom to the side, but see what you have to say about that trade. And then I also want you to give us some information, maybe if you saw the Jimmy Butler trade.
I can touch on that one just real quickly, only because I feel like there's less to talk about there. I think the whole thing with Jimmy Butler going to the Warriors was, I think it was just a situation where Jimmy didn't want to be there. I think he was getting suspended, a few games here, a few games there, and it was just kind of like, what are we doing here? Like, and I think his contract was coming up too, so it's just one of those things where hey, get what you can from me because come the offseason, I'm not going to be here. So you ship him to the Warriors, who the Warriors are trying to win. I believe they're in 10th place right now, fighting for a play-in game when it comes to the end of the season. So, and I think the Warriors were getting desperate too. So, you see two parties where one guy's desperate to get out and one team's desperate to get a star. Let's just try it out and see how it goes. So as far as that goes, and the return for the Heat, kind of really only headlined by Andrew Wiggins. I know Steve Kerr likes him, but as a player on the court, he's not really the guy we thought he was. Drake might have put him in a verse, but that might have been the highlight of his career up to this date. So, but moving into the Lakers one, I think you look at it. LeBron James, he's not getting any younger. I'd say he maybe has 2-3 years left max. Beyond that, whatever you're getting out of him, it's not going to be anywhere near the name. So I think with the Lakers, AD might have been in that awkward situation where it's kind of like a Myles Garrett thing where I'm not getting any younger, and if I got no other star around me, because AD definitely does need someone. I think I would say most people do in the NBA. You need that second guy. I think it would have been a bit of an awkward situation where AD's not young, but he's obviously still good, and he's kind of in that middle ground. But now that he's with a guy right like with Kyrie, where they're kind of similar in age, they can kind of push forward together. And whereas, let's say LeBron does retire soon, right? Well,
Mhm.
Luke is 25. That's the perfect guy you want to build around. You know, you have Austin Reeves. I think he might even be a year younger or a year older than Luca. So those are two guys that you really want to be excited about going about forward with the Lakers.
It was weird.
I know they got Williams from Charlotte as well.
I was going to say, and then they went and flipped a bunch of picks and
Yeah,
connect for Williams, who then goes into that center role for AD, and he's also 23, 24. I forget how old he is, but they're improving the team now while
100%.
still
And that's
giving
the
them a
way I
chance in the
see it. And
future.
like I
That's
said,
what it
I
feels
think
like.
the Mavs, obviously, you don't want to see a guy like Luca go. But I think AD is a great player. And like I said, he's kind of in that age range with Kyrie. So I think you give it a couple years to see how they look together. If you don't really like how it's looking, you ship them off and you kind of restart. Obviously, you don't have Luca to build around now. But I think as far as for the NBA talk, I think it's just super exciting for the sport. And it was kind of needed because I don't know about you guys, but as a fan that was probably the first team that I loved as a sports fan, to just kind of going, oh, the Lakers are playing, oh, the Lakers won, the Lakers lost, like it was kind of one of those things where they were kind of getting fizzled out of my life as far as a fan, uh, but this for me kind of rejuvenated it, and I'm excited to see where the sport goes now with all the trades that have happened.
I was about to say, I could have sworn while you were talking about that, I saw your phone raise a little bit. Maybe your desk was coming up. Something
I
was
think you
pushing your
talked to any
desk up a
Laker
little bit
fan,
when you're
and that'll
talking about
happen.
Luka going to the Lakers. Uh, you know, I think when you got that, I don't know. I could have sworn that AJ texted me saying he got a little bit of zipper burn when he got
Hey,
that notification
these
from
boxers might
ESPN
have
that
shrunk
Luka
a
was going to
size.
the Lakers.
As as a somebody who's not that big into basketball, just to move away from this talk, I want to move on. I know AJ knows a lot about basketball. For me, I think one of these the underrated trades was De'Aaron Fox going to the Spurs. How do you think
Hmm.
that's going to impact? Because I think that's huge. Because who did Wemby have with him up until now? I as a casual, I don't think he had
Yeah, no.
anybody
Certainly not.
on De'Aaron Fox's
Certainly not an
level. So
established young star like De'Aaron Fox is. They have a guy named I forget his
yeah,
first name, but last name Castle. He looks really great. He looks really great. but
That's the point.
but aside from that, it was really that guy, and then Chris Paul's. He's nowhere near the name anymore. So I think for the Spurs,
we don't. Chris
and
Paul is
for what it
done.
seems,
Yeah,
they didn't give up a ton. I'm not for sure. Yeah,
that was it's pretty sure it's like
and
a
I know
three-team
Levine had
trade.
gone to
So
the
it's just
Kings, obviously to
rotating
replace
players around.
De'Aaron
Yeah,
Fox. But that actually funny that you mentioned it. That was probably the second trade
yeah.
that I was the most excited about because I think we even saw. Oh, I watched the highlights of the Spurs
Yeah.
game of at De'Aaron Fox's debut, and man, when I see him crashing the rim, yeah.
Hey, I
So
bet on him.
there you go.
I bet on him, and
But
he hit
yeah,
for
no,
me.
that
I
was
was like,
another
cool,
trade
let's go.
where Wemby, he's what 21, already a star. So to get him someone like De'Aaron Fox, who's like 25, 26,
Definitely.
perfect. If you're a Spurs fan from where you were post coach, God, what's his name? I freaking drawing a blank. Yeah. To see that post era
Popovich.
kind of end and then kind of be like a ghost of what you were before in the past, with those great teams before, to kind of now where it's kind of like a renaissance where you got Wemby and De'Aaron to kind of look forward to take you into the future. I'm loving it. Obviously, they might not make the playoffs this year. I know they're kind of in that like 11, 12 range. But I think you signed De'Aaron Fox to an extension this year, in the offseason, and you're off to the races. You start building around those two.
So I got one more thing for you real quick. I did see this earlier. I just wanted to make sure I got the
Okay.
name right.
Yeah.
But you know who you got to feel for in all these trades is Dennis Schroder.
Yeah.
He keeps getting passed
Because
around.
he's been dished like 4 times.
I won't
That's
say that.
you don't know where
I
your
will
home
not
is. It's
say
got to be
that.
You're
terrible. It's got
German.
to
Who
be.
cares?
Oh, whoa,
It's one of those things where he's a good role player,
whoa,
but when you start
whoa.
paying those
All
guys
right.
like what's his name? He went to the Magic. Oh my God. KCP. When you see a guy like KCP who got paid, sometimes those contracts just can't be bought out. Like you're locked in with that team. He's not leaving the Magic. But when you're Dennis Schroeder, who's getting I think maybe like 4 or 5 mil this year,
Mm-hmm.
some team can kind of look at that and be like, you know what? That's a guy that's not getting paid a whole lot, but a guy who can kind of contribute, um, and be a kind of nice part of that deal. I know he got traded to the Pistons and then he got shipped to the Jazz. That's a little of a head scratcher for me. I don't know if he got traded since. Probably did. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think that's just one of those things where guys don't make too much for a team to be like, yeah, you know what? That's a great guy that we can add to the depth of our roster. Let's get him. So I think when you see a guy like that, I would say it's more of a credit to his game, um, for him to be able to get traded like that and teams
Mm-hmm.
be interested because I think you'd rather have teams interested than you kind of fall out of the league, which we see that every year with guys. So I don't get me wrong, it does
Happens a
hurt,
lot.
but
Yeah, happens a lot.
he has value in this
So
league, and I think that's how you have to look at it at the end of the day.
yeah, it just sucks. It just sucks that he has no idea where like he's going to be playing basketball. I mean, hopefully he's wherever he is now. He's set, but I guess we'll see here. But let's talk some baseball real quick. Let's go ahead and talk about, well, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit of a homer, but it's also the biggest news we've had for baseball for a little bit now is the fact that Pete Alonso is going back to New York for at least the next year. The contract is structured to where he'll get 30 mil this year and then could opt out at the end of this year. So I'll give my opinion in a second because mine's probably going to be a long, drawn out thing. I'm curious, AJ, what do you think this does for the first baseman, for the Mets, in your opinion, but also the first baseman market? I'm sure someone like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is very happy to see this,
Yeah, no, I hope he's.
this
I would think
contract.
he wants something in the 10 plus years. But I think for the Mets, if you're Pete, you're definitely kicking yourself for not signing that extension that they offered last year because it is. I don't think he'll hit that dollar amount and the year amount in the next 5 years that it would have been post extension that he would have gotten. And it kind of sucks, Obviously, we want to see players get paid, but sometimes a deal it sounds good and sometimes it is good, and that's just one of those things. But I think for the Mets this season, who have obviously spent money, plan to win, and are trying to win, this is perfect. You Because I could have totally seen it where Mark Vientos goes in the year, all right, you're our guy. You gotta be our 3-4 hole hitter behind Soto, and you gotta produce in a second year where sophomore slumps are a thing. They happen every year to great players, and it happens every year to people. I would
So
full
this
full season
technically
though,
would have been
right?
his third year.
Yeah,
Just with the whole second full season. Although he
yeah.
did no, actually this would, if you're gonna go
Mm,
full season, this would
okay.
technically be his first full
Mm,
season because he came up in like
okay.
June. But as we say hello to Cody.
Flipped around now. Phone, a little bit of technical issues.
But so this would technically be his first full season, I guess, technically, because he came up a quarter of the year last year. But I'll go ahead and I'll give my take before Cody comes into Cody, just to kind of fill you in, because you probably have no idea. We're talking obviously Pete Alonso right now. We're talking Pete Alonso, and so the $30 million. I saw a lot of people saying that that's a lot of money for Pete Alonso, and it is. I think that it's 1 year, and the Mets obviously have no problem spending money. It's not. Hey, listen, it's not my money. I don't care. Steve Cohen has no problem spending the money, and that's perfectly fine. He's a staple in their lineup. He's a staple in the city. The things I don't necessarily like are the opt-out. I don't like. I understand that the Mets didn't want to keep him on a long-term deal because, if we're going to be honest, although the power's always been there, the average has gone down every single year to where he hit what? He broke the single season rookie record, or the single season rookie record for home runs, and still hit 290. But since then, he hasn't touched 260.
Yeah.
It's undeniable the power's there. He's still a 30-plus home run guy. You'd argue he had a terrible year last year. He still hit 30-plus home runs and almost drove in 100 guys. So it's a little interesting. The money, like I said, I'm sure someone like Vlad Jr., who although was probably looking for more years, per year-wise, really likes that contract.
Yeah.
I just don't. I'm not a big fan of opt-outs because that if Pete Alonso is going to have a monster year, which I hope he does, because that means the Mets are very, very good. Then you're looking at a very interesting talks next year, where I would like Pete Alonso to stay a Met, but if you're going to look me straight in the face and say, hey, both these guys want 5+ years for $26 million. Who are you going to choose? Pete Alonso or Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? I'm choosing Vladdy every single day of the week. And, I don't want to sound like I would be hating Pete Alonso for what he's done for the Mets, but that's just Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has proven to be a better player these past few years.
Yeah.
And AJ, kind of to go back on what you said about asking, I think this is very good for someone like Mark Vientos' development as well, because you have bats in the lineup like Lindor and Soto that you have to pitch around.
Yeah.
And Vientos would have to prove to everybody in MLB, being that third or fourth guy in the lineup, that you can't pitch around Lindor and Soto because you have Vientos. Yeah. Now, if he hits anything like he did once he came up last year, then yes, he proved to the MLB that you can't pitch around Mark Vientos. But what makes it even better is if Mark Vientos hits like that, he's protected by Pete Alonso, or he's protecting Pete Alonso.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like that give and take. And I am a full believer in Mark Vientos, and honestly, the future of the Mets in general. I wouldn't hate to see, if you can't get Vlad and Pete wants too much money, I wouldn't hate to see Vientos moving over, and then you see like a Ronnie Mauricio or Luis Angel Acuna play third base. I think it'd probably have to be Ronnie. He just builds, fits the stature for a third baseman more.
Yeah.
But there's just too many decisions that need to go into this next year for the Mets. Obviously Pete's not going to opt out if he hits 220 and has 30 home runs, I don't think. But if he goes out there, hits 250 with 40 plus, he's going to opt out. And then now David Stearns has to deal with a whole lot of other stuff, when you should probably be focusing on trying to build your rotation to combat realistically the people you'll be playing in the NLDS and CS at this point for the Mets. Hopefully is you're shooting for that playoff spot every single year and trying to build a staff that can beat the Dodgers. That's just kind of how it is. I mean, the Mets they're in a tough division. You have the Braves and the Phillies, so you have to fight with them all year. And then you go into the playoffs, and then if you get past the Braves and the Phillies, probably in the postseason too, congratulations. You have to play arguably the best team ever assembled. So you just have to have depth for that. And I think that the more time these contracts with Pete Alonso eat up, whether it's this offseason or next, it just doesn't help the organization.
Yeah, so I guess it's my turn to add something in on this. I think AJ already talked about it when I'm gone.
Yeah,
he did.
I think my thing with this Pete Alonso contract is a lot of people are saying Scott Boras fumbled the Pete Alonso contract. Scott Boras messed up Pete Alonso's contract. I don't see that's true at all. I think Pete Alonso is somebody who is trying to get the money that he would have gotten if it was 2018, 2019 when he was dominating the league, but has put together multiple down years in a row, and yeah, he's going to hit 30 home runs, but I feel like 30 home runs from a first baseman is dime a dozen at this point, right?
It's anybody.
So
it's anybody.
He's out there trying to get money that the Freddie Freemans are signing, trying to get money that the Vlad Guerrero Juniors are going to get, that Paul Goldschmidt got when he was winning MVPs. He's trying to get that money,
Yeah.
but he's not on that level. So when you're trying to say, hey, I want to be here, but you're hitting 230, that's never going to happen. So honestly, applaud Scott Boras, because worst case scenario, if Pete Alonso sucks and does horrible, you got $54 million. That's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you have a great year, you make $30 million, and then you could sign your $200 million contract next year. So it's going to be interesting. I know the Mets have a lot of, I think they talked about moving Vientos at first for a while. Maybe getting Pete Alonso more DH opportunities will help. Do they still have JD Martinez on the team?
No.
So
JD Martinez JD Martinez looking to play pickleball. I don't know if you saw that news,
because he's getting old.
But JD Martinez looking to play pickleball. Yeah.
So I think that opens the door for Alonso to get off his feet more and focus more on hitting, because that's what he is. He's a hitter.
Mm-hmm.
You're not expecting him to play great first base. He's kind of a goofball at first base, in my opinion. But you need him to hit.
Relax. He's not that bad of a defender.
And you can't. I'm not saying he's bad, but he looks like a goofball.
Oh, he looks like if Hunter Pence played first base.
He looks like a goofball like that. So he's just got to turn around. The goal's got to be like 260, 270 average. Because you're right, he's going to hit 35 home runs. Probably a lock for 35 home runs this year. He's still, he's on the wrong side of 30, but he's closer to 30 than he is 40. So he can still hit 230 plus home runs. And then he opts out, and then you sign a 5-year, $120 million type contract maybe next year. And that's got to be the goal. I think that's got to be the goal. So people are saying Scott Boras is ruining his contract. Scott Boras is ruining Alex Bregman. They haven't done anything recently to earn the rights to that money. So I think it's a good signing for Pete Alonso. I think it's a good signing for the Mets. You bring back a team fan favorite. I think a lot of Mets fans like Pete Alonso, and now they can bring him back not for $200 million. They can bring him back for much cheaper. I think it's a win. I think it's a win-win.
And a lot less commitment.
This contract is a win-win. This contract is a win-win because although you're paying the most out of all MLB teams for a first baseman this year, it's also this year.
Yeah,
I think that's.
I never look at one-year contracts like that. Yeah.
No, it's how much, because especially with how baseball is with guaranteed money, it's how much money for how long.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion. So you're looking 100%. At like the Mets weren't comfortable with the contract that Pete Alonso wanted, and I think the whole Scott Boras thing kind of started last year with Blake Snell.
Yeah.
With the fact that he waited all the way until spring training, and then same thing. It kind of lingered this year with Alonso and Bregman. And I don't know if it's true, but apparently during the talks with Alonso, they were looking at opt-outs where the Mets had to pay Pete more money if Pete decided to opt out.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know how true that is, but that was at least written in the media. So I think that it's some of these things that have come out the past few years where people, it seems like GMs and owners are starting to stand up to Scott Boras's BS, which hadn't been the case for quite some time. But Scott Boras still gets people paid. I mean, $30 million, $54 million for the next 2 years for Pete. I'm sure Bregman's going to sign for a whole lot.
Last year.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The home run in Milwaukee made Pete Alonso's contract.
Yeah, off Devin Williams.
That was Pete Alonso's contract. Yeah. That was. I mean, that probably made Pete Alonso an extra $5 million. Just that one home run, because other than that, he had a down year. I mean, that's just how it was, and he had multiple down years. Except for the past few years, he had staple like games where he played like a pivotal game. I mean, they weren't very good 2 years ago, so it's hard to have staple, games when your team doesn't make the postseason. But Pete Alonso was also massive during their wild card run in 2022.
Yeah.
So you're looking at when you have postseason runs, who are your guys?
Yeah.
Well, no shock. Now it looks like it's obviously Francisco Lindor, but who's the other guy? Pete Alonso. And no matter if he's had a down year, it seems like at the big moment, Pete Alonso does deliver.
Yeah.
And like I said, when you're a team now that's kind of built to make the postseason, your goal isn't to just make the postseason, it's to thrive in the postseason. You're going to need people that have proven to be clutch for you in the past.
If I was a Mets fan, I would love Pete Alonso because he's somebody who acknowledges the fans. He knows what the people wants, and he's not going to be he's giving his effort every single time. Now, is his effort always working? No, but if I'm a Mets fan, Pete Alonso is like one of my top 3 favorite players, I'd say.
Oddly enough, besides Soto and Alonso, my favorite, just off of fanfare, my favorite signing the Mets have had is Jesse Winker. I love the fact that they brought Jesse Winker back. Everybody. I don't know why. Well, yeah, I mean, he's just an asshole, and it's fun to watch, and he gets under people's skin, and he's just cool, and it seems like he loves playing in New York. I mean, he loved New York fans even when he was a Red. I mean, there's a clip on the internet. Sorry to go off on a tangent here, but there's a clip on the internet where he jogs out to the outfield at Citi Field, and there's a sign that is very, very mean towards Jesse Winker. Very mean. And Jesse Winker jogs back in, comes out for the second inning with a signed ball and a signed bat, and gives it to the dude in a trade for the sign because he loved the sign so much. So that's
the interaction that I love. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. And he's awesome. And it I mean, I'm sorry to go off on a whole Mets tangent, but I can do that all day. And
I've done my Dodger tangents. I'll do. Hey, baseball season's only a couple months away. AJ's going to get his Angel rants. I'm going to get my Dodger tangents, and I'm sure the Mets tangents will come. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm just hoping they're not Met rants.
Yeah,
they might be. You never know.
Hey,
they might be.
Speaking of tangents, I kept saying I talked about a few weeks ago. My expectation is the Dodgers set the wins record. Miguel Rojas in an interview said this team's going to win 120 games. So even the players, they're going for the record. They're going for the record.
Well, listen, I think that your hope going into the offseason or going into the season, no matter what team you are, should be that you win 100+ games.
Yeah.
Now, rarely is that the case.
120.
But it obviously is the case.
120 now.
120 so much.
121 and 41. I was going to hit like crack.
So much. It's so much, dude. That's a crazy amount of wins. And the problem is if you win that many games,
win percentage. Oh God.
Yeah. If you win that many games and then don't win the World Series, nobody's going to care.
Gonna hit like crack.
That's just kind of how it goes. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, when you talked about that before, when you talked about the Dodgers, I said the Boston Bruins broke the single season win record for the NHL. But then they got swept in the first round or something like that, and nobody cares.
Oh, yeah.
So it's awesome to win 120 games. You got to win.
I think that's all four major sports. The top win seasons have no championships, right? So hockey's the Bruins, no championship. Patriots 16-0, no championship. Mariners, no championship, and the 73-9 Warriors, no championship.
Yeah, I mean, so good. I hope the Dodgers win 120.
Let's settle for 115.
Well, that'd still break the record, wouldn't it?
That'd be one less.
Oh,
jeez, 116. Oh my God,
that's so much.
I just want the Angels to win 90.
Insane.
Is that too far?
Hey, we can talk about this.
The goal for the Angels right now. 82 is the goal.
Hey, we can talk about this. We can talk about this real quick. The Angels broke headlines today, and a surprising thing that they didn't sign a 17th outfielder.
What do you mean?
Well, they did sign another former top prospect from 6 years ago, so they did do that.
They did. Hey, listen. But remember, Jurickson Profar was also a former top prospect.
And look what happened to him.
Exactly.
Hey,
I'll tell you what. If you built the lineup off of if there was lineups built off of what ifs, the Angels would win 120 games.
Oh, that would hit like crack.
They would.
It would.
They would. I mean, there's no way they wouldn't. You have so many former top prospects that haven't come out to anything. The what if Anthony Rendon stayed healthy and was good.
Yeah.
And then the what if. Oh, see, even my iPhone agrees with me. And the what if Mike Trout stayed healthy. That's just kind of how it is. Now, you'd need a massive what if with pitching being good. But, I mean, unfortunately, AJ, there's not that much to talk about with the Angels right now except for Moncada.
Hey, you know what? It's not a sexy signing, but it's an upside one. And you know what? I will take it. As a team.
So where's he going to play?
Third base. They're kicking. Hey, Rendon's gone.
Bro, you can't can't go into a season. It's okay.
Expecting Rendon to play.
The allegations aside, this is the Deshaun Watson of MLB.
Like he said, the allegations aside.
Allegations aside, this is a guy or Russell Wilson with the Broncos. How about that? Russell Wilson with the Broncos.
All right,
You
all right,
you
all right.
you have to go into the season expecting nothing at this point because he's given you
Yeah.
nothing up until now. So
What do you mean? That's Tony Two Bags, baby. What are you talking about?
I ain't seen that guy.
Yeah,
But
all right.
yeah,
Well,
you know what?
if
Just an
you got it,
upside signing that I will definitely take. And it's like I said, you can't go into a season relying on Rendon anymore. We've seen what it looks like, and it's not good. And if Moncada is healthy, he's probably better than what Rendon would give us anyway. So
He's
you
getting
have
$5
to.
million.
And yeah, it's
yeah,
$5
$5
million
million
for one
too.
year.
That's
You
nothing.
have to take that every day of
Yeah.
the week. So for me, I will take that. Alrighty. We had to send Cody off for a little bit. I know we're getting toward the end of our conversation. But I know Brian, you wanted to touch on some NHL. We do have the Final Four, our Four Nations face off coming up. So I don't know why got a little NCAA in there. But yeah, we have that coming
You
up
good?
with some NHL. Did you want to fill us in a little bit?
I did a little bit. I wanted to talk some NHL before, but honestly, the NHL is pretty small market, and I didn't know how many of our listeners were into the NHL until we posted that poll. So thank you guys for
Mm-hmm.
voting in that poll. That's actually why we started talking about basketball and then some hockey right now
Mm-hmm.
in our podcast, and we'll continue to do that if you guys like it. Just let us know. But so yeah, let's go ahead and I'll start off with some hockey at first, just in general, just kind of like a recap of the season so far, I guess. And shocking, a little bit of surprise to everybody. The Washington Capitals are unbelievable. They lead the East right now, and if I'm pulling this up correctly, they lead by 10 points with 2
Oof.
games in hand over the Florida Panthers.
Wow.
And anybody that doesn't know much hockey, points are separated by 1 and 2, not 2 and 3 or anything like that. 2 points for a win, no points for a loss, obviously, but you get a point if you have an overtime loss.
Yeah.
So if you go into overtime, you get a point no matter what, and then you get that second point if you win in overtime or shootouts, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a little caveat there. The Capitals will probably continue to look good. Alexander Ovechkin is chasing Wayne Gretzky, I believe, with a buzzer beater goal, empty netter, 2 or 3 nights ago. He is now 17 goals away from the great one and passing his goal record, which a lot of people thought was untouchable. Obviously, Alexander Ovechkin's been a serial goal scorer his entire career. It's slowed down a little bit, but I mean, he's probably about 78 now. So, he's getting up there in age, and we were just talking baseball. You can get away with being in your 40s and playing still high level baseball. It takes a lot to play hockey, and it's pretty impressive what he's doing. Even if people think that he is just tapping pucks in, listen, man, if you don't like what he's doing, cover him. I mean, he's made a living sitting right off that left face-off circle and slamming pucks into the top shelf for his entire career. And it's inevitably probably going to be enough to pass Wayne Gretzky's record, which is unbelievable. Like I said, a lot of people thought that every single one of Wayne Gretzky's records was untouchable, like nobody was going to touch it. And it lasted a long time. And I do think that Wayne Gretzky's points record will never be touched because even someone like Ovechkin, who's probably going to pass him in goals,
Just doesn't have the
will
assists.
never touch Wayne Gretzky's point. Oh, not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. And so that's a little interesting. Let's go into the West. I do know the West a little bit more just because myself, I'm a Colorado Avalanche fan. Yeah. So we're looking at the West right here. The West is a little interesting because you have a team like the Kings who have played significantly less games than everybody else because of the tragedies in Los Angeles. They haven't played a few games. They are sitting right now right below the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche are in 6th and the Kings are in 7th. But for the perspective setter, the Avalanche have played 56 games. The Kings have played 51. And there is a 4-point difference right there. So hopefully the Kings will, hopefully not, but the Kings could bounce back. They're a very good team. The Winnipeg Jets lead that division, or that conference, I should say. The Winnipeg Jets are unbelievable, riding off their unbelievable goalie Hollaback. The Edmonton Oilers right behind them, obviously riding the best player in the NHL.
No shock there.
With Connor McDavid, who this year actually isn't filling up the net a whole lot, but providing for players like Leon Draisaitl an insane amount this year. I mean, all you have to do, and this is the same with a few people, and obviously I'm going to be a little bit more biased to the West Coast because that's most of the hockey that I watch. So I'm sorry to any listener who watched the East Coast. I'm actually interested for you guys to tell me who players like this are on the East Coast. But, you sit down and you watch a game and you watch someone like Connor McDavid or Nathan McKinnon or Quentin Hughes for the Vancouver Canucks, or Cale Makar, obviously, for the Avalanche as well. You watch them play, and with everybody else on the ice, it almost looks like you accidentally hit fast forward because they're just skating, just for that player, though, because they're just skating faster than everybody else. And it's been unbelievable to watch McDavid this year. It's unbelievable to watch McDavid every single year. Obviously, selfishly, I hope that Nathan McKinnon can again beat him out for the Hart Award. But we'll have to see. Nathan McKinnon's got his work cut out for him, just like he does every single year, to do that. I did want to talk about the Four Nations. The Four Nations obviously comes up. February 12th is the first game. Canada will open it up against Sweden.
Ooh.
And this is really cool. I think Josh, I don't think anybody else can hear Josh, but maybe he can give me a little bit of insight. Josh, this is the first time they've done this, correct? Something like this with the Four Nations. So this is the first time that this is kind of going on. It's a four-nation battle between Canada, Sweden, Finland, and the United States. It's a good thing that these games are being played and not just looked at on paper. Because boy, oh boy. I mean, listen, the United States has unbelievable goaltending. The United States' team, if I pull this up here just so I get it correctly, the United States, as I accidentally go on fucking Twitter. Okay. The United States team has Connor Hellebuyck, the goalie and arguably the best goalie in the NHL, goalie for the Jets. They have Jake Ottinger, who's also probably a top 3 goalie in the NHL. And they have Jeremy Swayman, who's also probably a top 5, top 7 goalie in the NHL. Unbelievable goaltenders. And don't get me wrong, the entire team is very good. You have the Hughes brothers, all 3 of them, I believe, are playing in this. Austin Matthews is obviously a serial goal scorer for Toronto. And you have the Tkachuk brothers. Matthew Tkachuk, obviously a Super Bowl. Jesus, sorry, it's that week. I don't want to disrespect Lord Stanley like that. He's a Stanley Cup winner this last year with the Florida Panthers. So he's an unbelievable player. And you have other people that have kind of had a career resurgence with the new team that they're at. Someone like Jack Eichel, who when he went to the Knights, became kind of like a staple for that team. And he also, if I remember correctly, won a cup with them when the Knights won 2 years ago. So you have unbelievable teams or players like that. But as I scroll up, just to make sure that I get this right, if there's anything the Canadian team lacks, it's goaltending. Jordan Binnington, Aiden Hill, and Sam Montembeault. I'm sorry for anybody that's a fan of Sam. I'm not very good with that name. But that you would argue that those are lower end goalies. Aiden Hill is a Stanley Cup winner with the Knights 2 years ago, but you'd argue that if you put them up against the United States goalies, they wouldn't really compare. But that's all right, because on Canada's team, you have the best player in the world, Connor McDavid. You have the second best player in the world, Nathan McKinnon. You also have the best defender in the world, Cale Makar. You also have another great defender, selfishly, in Devon Taves. You have other great defenders like Corton Perioc, and Sean Theodore. And then just a small little guy, might crack I don't know how they're going to line up in lines. Honestly, I don't know how they're going to line up this team. But they have just a small player named Sidney Crosby as well.
That's all right.
Just no big deal. Also, someone like Sam Bennett, who is an unbelievable goal scorer for the Florida Panthers. Brad Marchand, who is the captain and leader of the Boston Bruins. And, just another serial goal scorer for the Florida Panthers, and Sam Reinhart. I mean, that team is unbelievable. You also have a Stanley Cup veteran with Mark Stone, who is a first liner on the Knights, who probably will get in the third line for this team. You have a bunch of people that are first liners when they go play for their club, when they go play for whether it's the Avalanche or the Panthers or the Bruins or whatever. Yeah. But you had to, some of these guys are going to have to play the third and fourth line. And, when you play in an NHL game, obviously the first 2 lines are normally your premium lines. Third and fourth lines are down and dirty. You're dumping pucks, chasing pucks, and just trying to, get some shots on. You normally see the first and second line kind of build that attack and all that. But when you're talking about 4 lines of just unbelievable hockey players, the United States better hope that they can really capitalize on the flaw of goaltending that the Canadians have. And if they can't, it can get really ugly. If that Canadian team can find the synergy and play together, it's going to be unreal. It's going to be interesting. I would assume, just because there's the same player, I would assume that you're going to have Connor McDavid center the first line and Nathan MacKinnon center the second line, because they're the same player.
Yeah.
They play the same way. It'd be really interesting to see them. They're the 2 fastest skaters in the NHL. You don't need them on the same line. But it'll kind of be interesting to see how they line up. Will it work? I mean, the only other thing that you'd argue, this normally isn't a thing with hockey. This is normally a thing with other sports, but not really with hockey. We'll have to see if some egos get in the way. I don't know. That could be the case for any of these teams, because obviously all these teams are unbelievable. Each one of these teams have really, really good players. So it's going to be interesting to see how they mesh together. Hockey is a very team sport. You're not going to be able to win it as an individual. But we're going to have to see if these teams of superstars can mesh. Obviously, a lot of them don't play with each other a whole lot. And I mean, I don't know what rules they're going to be playing this under. I don't know if it's going to be Olympic rules or if it's going to be the NHL type rules. There's not that much of a difference between the two, except of kind of like where the goalie can play the puck and some other small rules that kind of differ than the NHL. Not anything really that will hinder play. But other than that, I mean, these teams are, unbelievable. You have, even for Finland, obviously names that jump off to me are Alexander Barkov, unbelievable player for the Florida Panthers, Sebastian Aho, who is now probably arguably the best player on the Hurricane, besides maybe they just picked up Mikko Rantanen from the Avalanche, and Mikko Rantanen is a very good scorer, but I would argue that Aho's probably a better all-around player. And then you look at someone like Sweden, where they have, let's see here, as it pulls up, they have Kempe from the Kings. He's not too bad of a player. Leo Carlsson, who's young. I don't know how much he's going to be able to impact all that stuff, but it's going to be very interesting to see. I just hope that it can stay competitive, because I just want to see some good hockey. Obviously, I want the United States to win. I'm from the United States, but I will tell you that it's one of those things where it's kind of like the Dodgers, where you're just going to turn on the Dodgers because you're going to want to watch greatness. And I promise you, even this opener, I'm going to turn on this Canada-Sweden game because I'm going to want to watch that Canada team play.
Yeah.
They're so good. And so it's going to be really interesting. I'm curious to see, what this kind of sets up for the second half, I guess. I was just reminded from our producer Josh as well that this is kind of the replacement for the All-Star game and the skills competition that the NHL has. So it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts, the second half of the season. I will tell you that these guys normally play all out for their country. Obviously, the All-Star game isn't really an all-out game. I don't think it's an all-out game in any All-Star game across any of the sports, really. But it'll be interesting to see. God, I hope that none of these guys get hurt, because the Four Nations would end quick if Connor McDavid gets a season-ending injury. So I don't think we're going to be seeing a whole lot of it if a few star players go down.
Yeah.
Or it's going to turn into the thing where maybe teams are hesitant to send their guys.
Yeah.
And I don't really want that either. But so it's going to be nice. Like I said, I just curious to see how this long of a break, you don't normally, unless it's the Olympics, you don't normally get this long of a break in the middle of the season where you're not playing with your guys. Now this thing goes from February 12th to, looks like the championship game is February 20th.
Oh, wow.
So on paper, it's only 18 days. That's a long time.
No, you
normally playing a few more games with your team then. February 12th to 20th. So 8 days. My bad. 8 days. So this is gonna last. Yeah, this is gonna last 8 days. Okay. My bad. And so it's gonna be interesting to see. You're normally playing 3 or 4 maybe games with your team
in that span,
in that amount of time. So in that span. And I think if I look at this correctly, at least obviously because they're marked as my favorite team on ESPN, they're just gonna come up right away.
Yeah.
But I believe that like a team like the Avalanche play the 22nd.
Okay, so pretty quick turnaround.
So it's going to be they play almost immediately again, and I think that's nothing different than when they played in the Olympics. If I could get a little help from Josh, that's no different, right? They'd have that quick turnaround. Like normally when they have the Olympics, it's a pretty quick turnaround back into the regular season as well, right? Yeah. So yeah, I now can confirm. Actually, in fact, the Avalanche play on the 22nd, and then they play again on the 23rd.
Oof.
And I'm sure that's the same for a lot of teams. There's something to be said about how, I don't want to bash another sport here, but there's something to be said about how the NHL guys will go all out.
Yeah.
And for this thing, and then play a back-to-back. In other sports, back-to-backs are a no-go, and some would argue a less contact sport. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all goes and how it affects the second half of the season. I'm excited for it. I like to see international hockey because you don't get to see it all that much. Normally, you only get to see it, besides the 4 Nations, you really only get to see it with the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, with the Olympics, for sure.
Oh, so real quick, I don't know if I told you this, and I know Josh was going to get a kick out of this, but just something to, cap off the
hockey talk.
the episode, and certainly something with the hockey stuff. So there was a guy, I'm sorry, I saw the tweet and I forgot his name, and I actually forgot what team he played for. But there was a guy, he took a high stick to the mouth,
Oof.
right? Knocked out 4 of his teeth.
Oof.
This was on a Friday. I believe this was last Friday. It knocked out 4 of his teeth. Typical hockey guy. He goes into the locker room. They stitch him up. Requires like 35 stitches or something like that. They stitch him up. He gets back out there, plays the rest of the game. Not only does he play the rest of the game, his team was down a goal. He assisted the game-tying goal and scored the game-winning goal. After the game, he had x-rays, and the doctors noticed there was a reason they could only find 3 of his teeth. It's because the 4th tooth was still lodged in his lip, and they had sewn over it. So they opened him back up, pulled the tooth out of his lip.
That's crazy.
Stitched him back up. He went on Saturday morning and got bone grafts and root canals for the 4 teeth, and he played Saturday night,
brother,
against the Dallas Stars.
Those guys are just different, dude. Those guys are different.
I don't understand how the hell you could do that, dude. It blows my mind. I read that story. I was like, this can't be real. It can't be real, but it is. I mean, you get these injury reports. These guys play all out. I'll give it to them, even if they have some sort of injury. I mean, one of my favorite things, I don't like to do it because I don't like people being hurt.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things to do is look at the injury list after a team gets eliminated from the playoffs. And then you notice that some guy's been playing on a broken fibula for the last 2 weeks.
Dude.
Like one more story real quick. Matthew Tkachuk in their playoff run 2 years ago when they lost in the Cup final. It came out that the trainers had to make special pads. Now, I don't know if this was true. I heard it. But they had to make special pads that would open up this way, like over the top, because they had to help him to a massage table, lay him down, strap the pads over him, get the jersey on him, tie his skates for him, and he played the Cup final with a broken sternum.
Dude. At this point, I wouldn't rule it out. I would rule it out.
That's what I'm saying, is that this hockey stuff is so insane that you don't rule it out. It could be the most insane stuff of all time. I mean, I saw an injury report where a dude played with a shattered ankle. Mark-Edward Vlasic, back when the Sharks were good, played on a shattered, fractured in 4 different places, his ankle. And he just played. What does it matter? They need to do studies on these guys, man. It's unreal.
Built different.
I don't understand it, but I think that's it. I think that's all we have today. So let me know what you guys let us know what you guys think about pretty much everything we talked about Super Bowl wise. I know a lot of you guys are probably tired of the whole Super Bowl content because that's really only anybody's been talking about for the last 2 weeks. But let us know what you thought about with the NBA stuff and the NHL stuff. I will say that even though I do like to think I'm an NHL fan, I am only recently into NHL, so don't cook me too hard in there. Just give me some pointers and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that'll do it for us. If you want to lead us out.
Yeah, no. Thank you guys. Keep interacting with us on socials. I did put that one out about NHL and NBA, which is why we kind of got back into it. I would love to start watching some more NBA, start being able to talk about it better. Obviously, it's kind of getting into that season or mid-season where, we're gonna have playoffs in a few months. So this would be a great time, to kind of familiarize myself with it and just kind of push forward and kind of learn about it. So if that's something you guys want to keep seeing, let us know. Get busy in the comment section, and yeah, I think we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.